setting it up well. Thank you for Michael and Ted doing the Generativity framework this morning. And I think you'll see how that applies here. So I spent a few decades in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and 11 years ago we had the 4th worst public disaster in U.S. history. We lost 10 square miles in the center of our community. Most people haven't heard about it, but that's because some other things happened that knocked us off the radar screen. But if you can imagine 10 square miles in the center of your community, pretty much wipes out everything. 5,000 homes, 1,000 businesses, all the governmental agencies, most of the public infrastructure, civic organizations, cultural organizations. So we had to reimagine ourselves. We went to community meetings. And it became very clear to us that we needed to have people who could thrive in generative environments. And we had several community leaders go through a time of being a high school student. And they said, what are we doing? We are literally socializing the negative of what we would like. Because we are social, we're so focused on content and compliance that we're not developing people with creativity, courage, compassion. So if we wanted to do that, how would we do it? Well, we would have a project-based high school where the child or student expressed interest in whatever they were interested in, and then developed a project that related to a community need. When we opened that high school, and when we started talking to the students, the biggest issue was getting them to express an interest. They literally could not do it. Their response was, just give me the hoop that I have to jump through. That's what I'm good at. That's what I've been trained to do through the school system. There is a right answer. The person who gets it fastest is best. Now, with a lot of counseling and with work by the teachers, they eventually were able to develop an interest in a project, and that took off. But I started to think to myself, wait a second, this is what our 14, 15, 16-year-olds are like. What can we do from 3 to 11 to better prepare our students to participate in this very complex adaptive system that is the global economy? So we're also faced with a very disturbing fact, which is the same almost everywhere in America and also almost everywhere in Great Britain and Australia and New Zealand and Canada and any English-speaking country, which is only about 40% of our 4th graders read well. And well is not a very high standard. Another 30% can read, but it's painful for them and they don't like to do it. And another 30% cannot read, even if you place a very interesting compelling text in front of them. And we have known about the science of reading for 30 years. And that science of reading has not made it into classrooms in general. Some pockets, but in general not. And particularly in our school system in Cedar Rapids, it was nowhere. So we were having these community meetings, and I happened to talk to 5 different elementary school teachers who told me in no uncertain terms that they could not be their authentic selves in school. They could not speak what was on their mind, and they were miserable. I thought, you got to be kidding me. These are the people that we want to grow and develop the next generation, and they're miserable. And I said, why? And they said, because we are trying to meet multiple conflicting external demands that we know are impossible to meet. But we're running around like chickens with their head cut off, trying to do that, trying to keep our principal from being fired. So I went on a quest to try to find a school that was working. And I said, you know, I'm not going to define what working is, other than everybody understands what game it is they're playing, and they're measuring progress toward it. Because what I observed was that there were multiple games in every school, and there wasn't a common game. So, very long story, a lot of twists and turns, but I ended up being introduced to a school in London, England, in one of the, or as they say over there, one of the most deprived neighborhoods in the United Kingdom. And when I went to visit that school, I was immediately impressed, just immediately. First of all, it was an extraordinarily joyful environment. The teachers were all happy, the children were all happy. And every child was learning, every child was succeeding. And these, as they say, were some of the most deprived children in the United Kingdom, meaning they came to school with very little oral language, in any language. It wasn't that they just didn't know English, but even in their native language, they didn't have much oral language. And many of them had been severely and chronically traumatized. And I don't know if you know much about adverse child experiences, but when you have that repeated trauma, you really shut down. I mean, your whole system shuts down, and it's very difficult to learn. So here they are in this very deprived environment, yet everyone's succeeding. So I asked if anyone had ever told their story, and they said no, and I said, well, let's work on that. And it was only then that I learned that 12 years prior, the school was going to be closed. The government was going to close it because no one was learning, high conflict, police called every day. And so they were rightfully going to close it. But these three women said, let us have a chance to try to keep it open. So I asked them, what theory did you apply? And they just looked at me and said, are you kidding me? It was absolute chaos, right? Back to the investment framework. It was absolute chaos. The only thing we could do was sense and respond and try to take the next best step. So I listened to that. I was kind of impressed by that. But after being with them for a while, I realized, yes, they were doing that, but they were doing it within a framework. And the framework started with, as the head teacher said, that's what they call a principal there. The head teacher said, most of my contemporaries, most of my peers who went into similar situations immediately focused on test scores because that was the way to get out of jail. The government would keep the school open if the test scores improved. But she said, I determined that that was a bad existential bargain for the children. We weren't going to just prop them up to meet test scores and then go out and fail. So number one, should the children that were there were valuable just because they were there and for no other reason. And every person in that school, every teacher, every assistant teacher, every staff person had to believe that in their heart of hearts. So I said, well, did everybody believe that? She said, no. So we counseled people out. I said, how did that go? And she said, well, we got it done. This is a school of 250 children, so there were about 20 staff members. And she said we had 19 on board and 1 detractor. So I said, wow, 19 to 1, that's pretty good odds. I thought that worked. She said, no, it didn't work at all. Because everybody worried about the 1. Everybody was reacting to the 1. And it wasn't until everybody was on board that they could start to get traction. Number 2, each child has a unique voice. Each child has a unique pattern. You'll probably hear more about that from John in a few minutes. But instead of saying, you can do anything you want to do, it was, no, you have a unique pattern. You have a unique gift to give to the world. And the purpose of school is to enable you to do that effectively. That's what we're here for. And we do that because it's delightful in the moment, not for any future gain. It's not so you can become a doctor. It's not so you can go to high school. It's not so you can get to 2nd grade. It's because you're a human being and you love playing with language, doing music, understanding the scientific view of the world, doing math, right? We're humans. These are things. Now, the other little subtext that I love about this is it's not right. Right? We're all making maps. Every map is wrong. Maybe there's 10 bits on it. Every map is wrong. Some are useful. Every map is limited, for a particular purpose. It's provisional. And so what I see often in our schools is we say, we want the child to know something, so we're going to go right at it. And then we're going to test them on it. It doesn't work, right? It's not working. It hasn't worked. We've been at this game. I know in Iowa, we've been at the game for at least 70 years, which is the Department of Education will set standards, then the school district will set standards, and then the principal will make sure, as the chief compliance officer, that those standards are met. And then we'll all be happy and good and have a thriving community. It is not working. It's not going to work, right? So how do we develop a more generative educational system? That's been the quest. Frankly, I thought that I could go and make a documentary and people would see this was possible and like the world would change. So we brought 2 principals from Cedar Rapids. They came, we made a documentary, and the reaction in Cedar Rapids, which is all I was trying to affect at the time, was, oh, well, that was in London. And they had a charismatic leader, and charismatic leaders do amazing things. We couldn't do that. So the charismatic leader had left. There was a new assistant principal. Half of the teachers were different. We went back and made another documentary about how they were keeping going. And then people said, well, what exactly are they doing on literacy? And I'll try to make this brief. It's completely backwards to what we want. So these kids come with no oral language, severely deprived of executive function. The first thing, the principal or the head teacher's up there saying, this is a safe environment. Your home may not be safe, the streets may not be safe, but this is a safe environment. And why do we care so much about a safe environment? Because you have precious learning time. You're not going to get out of this unless you value your precious learning time. So if you or anybody affects precious learning time, we're going to be right on it. Number 2, each child got a buddy, paired. So there's 26 kids in the class, there's 13 pairs. Because they don't have oral language, the teacher spends a lot of time on story. Story, 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 story. Lots of stories, lots of other activities, but lots of stories. Then after all those stories, the teacher says, you know, we could make up a story too. And stories begin with usually once upon a time. So once upon a time there was a, what? Talk to your buddy. The room is above. It's not, it's just live with generativity. The kids come up with all kinds of things. It's a dinosaur, it's a sea captain, it's a princess, it's whatever. Well, it turns out that if you watch a video, they settle on rhinoceros. Well, what was the issue with the rhinoceros? Well, he had a big edge. What did he do? Blah, blah, blah. Then that is the kid's story. And they then use that story in our lessons. She says, you know, we could make pictures and we could memorize the story, or remember the story using the picture cues. They do that. Then they act it out kinesthetically, so they know that story. It's theirs. It's deeply embodied in them. Then they play with the sound structure of speech. Can you hear the sentence? Can you hear the word? Can you hear the syllable? Can you hear the sound? Once they can, then she'll say, how many sounds are in cat? The child will say, there's 2. Cat. The teacher will say, well, cat. How might we represent the k sound with a squiggle? Well, we could either do this, or we could do this. Why do we choose this? We don't know. Nobody knows. Right? But if you want to, you have an authentic voice. And if you want to be effective in expressing that voice, we suggest you use this. They have never named it. Right? Never. The kids are totally in the sound. And then after a long time, they say, you know that little squiggle that makes a k sound in cat? We call it a C. What do? We beat the crap out of little kids to learn the alphabet. It doesn't make any sense to them. It's very abstract, right? Anyway, it drives me crazy. But why do we do that? Because it's on the state test. Now, there's no question that kids who know their alphabet in kindergarten do better. There's no question about that. But you can't confuse correlation with causation, right? Yeah, kids who know their alphabet know a lot of stuff, and they do better. In fact, of those 40% that are doing well in reading, probably 30% would read well if a Walmart greeter stood on a trash can. Literally impervious to any instruction, because they had enough language, they had enough word rhymes, they had enough alphabet magnets, all that stuff before they came to school. They were going to learn no matter what. So of the 70% we're trying to reach, we're only reaching 10%. We can do better. But I thought that this was a complicated problem, and that if we could bring in experts to extract the technique for reading or math or whatever it was, we could just inject it into our system. I now believe it is a complex adaptive system. We have now, so we've made 3 documentaries. We wrote a paper called Generative Education, putting out what we observed in this school and other schools that we came across because of getting involved in this. The link to this paper is on my bio. So there's a bit.ly extension for this paper. And in the back of the paper, it has links to the videos. Now that we've talked to about 70 people around the world. We've engaged with about 40 of them in Zoom calls. And what we have discerned is, from everybody who's trying to do something like this, is it's really hard and it's really long. Because you're dealing with professionalism mindsets everywhere, with the teachers, with the administrators, with the parents. So you've got to build quite a emergent phenomenon network to get this to happen, right? So I really appreciate the work that we've got on line of sight and all that, because what we're seeing where people do this well is the leader has to really want to. And I'm going to say, in her bones, right? Has to really want to, because it's so hard. If the leader doesn't really want to, it's almost impossible for 1 or 2 teachers. In fact, you're just making teachers' lives more miserable if they try to do something without the support of the leader. So that school leader is absolutely critical. They need support. They need support from their administrator, at least not negative. You know, if you can just be neutral, that's great. If you can actually be supportive, that's even better. But they need a core team. They need 3 or 4 other teachers or staff members that are with them, and hopefully a parent or 2. And then that nucleus of 5 or 6 people can start to co-create the new narrative, bring other teachers and parents in, and use all the community building techniques that we've discovered. This is not a theoretical argument. There is St. George's Primary in London. There's actually, amazingly, St. George's in Montreal. There's Purple Bloom in Iowa City. There are schools, and as a fraction, there are lots of schools who are trying this, and this is not new. We have been having these discussions for thousands of years. It's just that 120 years ago in the United States, we made a decision that the primary values were content and compliance. That was the decision that was made at the time because of the immigration and how we had to get citizens and all that stuff. I'm not saying it was bad at the time, but we got so locked into that we're missing the opportunity. We're not developing the social capital we could, and we can have a lot more fun doing a lot less work if we would alter our way to more generative